want to do the honors of the kind of introduction?
Both of us love strategy, and we connected at a YPO event, and we're both in the same YPO chapter. And we also both love helping young adults reach their potential and thrive and get launched on a career. I have 4 children myself, 3 adults and 1 almost on the brink. I've enjoyed what I've learned there and helping there. The thing I find interesting is at the surface level, our specific expertise and interests and where we focus our professional work is seemingly quite different. But as we talked about the strategy of it and understood our philosophies, it's turned out that at the high level, there's massive overlap. Yeah, so I'm just looking forward to talking about strategy and how you help your kids advance and learn and become the best version of themselves that can go out there into the world and thrive. Yeah, it's going to be a great chat.
Each of us is an expert in respective fields, me in kind of college and graduate admissions, you in career preparation, cultivating professional skill sets. One of the things that unites us is that we both see that there is a chronic lack of effective strategy, that strategy is divorced from individuals' end objectives in both of these segments, in both of these kind of age groups. I thought it would be useful if you and I each traded back and forth like the biggest 3 misconceptions that we see either among our students or among their parents.
I think the first one is being uninspired by your major in college or by your eventual career, for instance. More than half of students struggle to remain interested with their college academic content, which means it's just miserable because you have to perform even though you don't like it. And then the same when you get to work. So one of my really good buddies I grew up with in Hong Kong, he has a senior role in Silicon Valley. And I'd visit him like 10 years ago and he was like more junior, but he ran a whole bunch of people. And we're in his office and we look at it and he goes, look at all these people, like half of them, they're here. They followed the path. They're at Google, they made it, they're 3 years in. They have no idea why. They don't know what to do. They don't know what they like. And they're kind of lost. And so I think there's a misconception that just do well and perform and you'll figure out happiness. And I think maybe people should do more work on the front end of that.
Strongly agree. For me, it would be that the misconception is that what makes you impressive at the school level, meaning at your high school level, is the same as what makes you impressive at a university level. Fundamentally, what governs admissions decisions at competitive schools is basically 2 variables, right? Are you academically qualified? And that's really a binary variable. You either are or you are not. Once you're qualified, getting higher grades and test scores doesn't mean much. And the second variable is basically, are you an expert at something in particular? Have you identified a passion or interest from a very young age and developed it? Now, these aren't actually the things that make you impressive at the school level. So the school level, there's always like Timmy, the kid who's everyone's like, be more like Timmy. Timmy has great grades, great test scores. He's like a tri-varsity athlete, president of student council. Everyone likes Timmy. And he's a jack of all trades and master of none. Now, the problem is that families see that in this, they see vertically from the best student down to the worst student. At their high school, they assume that the student at the top is the one who gets into Harvard. But that's not actually the viewpoint of the university. So the universities are taking the top 5%, the top 10% layer of all of these schools and comparing them to one another. And in that population, if you stand out there, then you get in. And in order to stand out there, being a jack of all trades and master of none is a really bad strategy because you look just like the top student from every other school. And they're not going to admit all of those students. So if you have a very particular interest in that field, like public health or something like that, you've done research and internships and things like that, that is much more valuable. So the first misconception is, and it's also an exhortation to see the institutional viewpoint and to use that to guide your strategy to stand out rather than just looking right in front of you, because that's not where admissions officers are looking.
Just to reinforce that, but a slightly different angle on that. One of the advantages of growing up in Hong Kong is it was so go get it, so much business focus or other stuff. And also the school I went to had more than 40 nationalities in it. So people with all these different experiences. And I remember one day I was stood there was like 180 something kids in my year. And I stood there with some of the kids who were really strong at, say, math and science. And this one guy, he goes, guys, do you know what? See some of the guys over there? We're going to be working for them one day. And it's because we were crushing it academically, but they got a go-get-it attitude and they're socializing well and all that. And he goes, yeah, be ready to work for them. And so it's this idea that don't get so caught up in this narrow side channel of life that is a stage you go through and there's almost no resemblance to winning in real life.
Second biggest misconception.
Getting the acceptance letter into the college of your choice, hopefully, or to the job of your choice, hopefully, that now you've made it. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, it's just the beginning. And what happens is the failure rate is immense and the lack of ability to accelerate is immense. So people come into college and they're not ready. I was really quite immature. I was very well bred academically, but I spent my time doing anything but what I was meant to be doing from an academic standpoint was a big problem. And also, even when I got into work, I was very strong technically, but I could have been a little gentler with some other things. I just ask a lot of successful people, I go, if you could go back in time and whisper one tip into your ear when you were younger, what would it be? And I like collate those and I'm like, yep, okay, yeah, I guess that's true. That's what people need to learn.
So I think my second one, I think, is very closely related. It may be stated slightly differently. One very common and problematic misconception is that parents and students think that college is an end in and of itself. And it's not. It's a stepping stone to a certain kind of life that you want. I know both of us agree that the correct way of strategizing around college and career and all this is to start at the end with what life you want to have and then work backwards. But I think this is particularly harmful for parents and students because they assume that once they're in that they've made it. But of course, you still have to work and you still need to get a job and you still have to perform. And it might open a few extra doors for you, but ultimately it's like it's you and your work that dictates whether or not you succeed. And I see this a lot with families in terms of like school selection. They will select schools exclusively based on prestige and rank, and not at all based on its ability to put a student in the right place at the right time for the career they want. If you want to be on Wall Street, it doesn't make sense to go to school in Florida. You should go to school where those firms recruit on campus, which is mostly New York universities. The point is, it is not an end in and of itself. And I often say, both to anyone who will listen, we're one of the larger college counseling companies in the world. But I always say they're really not paying us to get a kid into college. A lot of people think that's what it is. But really what they're doing is they're paying us to procure the highest likelihood that their student has a successful, happy life. And in college is an important, but still a singular component of that. And so you can't just stop there. You need to have the longitudinal view.
So a misconception is because people say it's true that it is. So for instance, people who graduate from college earn more than people who don't. And so everyone should go to college. Or people from this higher ranked college earn more on average than this mid-ranked one. But the problem is that's not accounting for obvious things. Like the kid in the bottom half of your high school class maybe has less potential to perform in complex tasks than the kid in the top. So it's not taking into account selection bias. The other is diminishing marginal utility. It's a concept that people don't understand very well. And maybe it's not a misconception, but the misconception would be, if you do even more of it, it'll be better. And so I was talking with one of my friends from Hong Kong. She was asking me some advice on what one of her children should do in the summer. I said, well, what did you do last summer? And this person's based in Asia and their kid goes to a super academic school and they work 40 weeks of the year plus at the high school. And so for the summer, kid had 7 weeks off and they went to Hong Kong to do another really intense academic course. And it's what point do you try and do some other things?
That resonates very strongly with me, especially as it relates to like grades and test scores. Every family thinks higher grades and higher test scores are always better. They're never worse. But like it also exists along a curve of diminishing marginal utility, where it's once you're at a certain level, if you have 1550 on the SAT, there really aren't schools in the US where having a higher SAT score is going to meaningfully improve your probability of success. You'd be far better served investing that time, developing expertise in your areas of interest or passion.
So I was interviewing at Cornell one time, long time ago, right? And I look at this kid's resume and we were talking about all kinds of stuff. And it's late in the process. And I look at the resume and the GPA was something like 4.23 or something. So my question was, why did you get a 4.3? I just want to see how he reacted because I was testing how he reacted in real world situations and stuff. And he starts to explain, I go, no, look, I'm joking. I'd almost be happier for you with 3.9. And we were talking about other stuff. Now he's really gone on and done lots of good stuff, right? I never worry with someone who's that dedicated. But I agree with you. There's a point where you go, is there nothing else you could have done with your time?
Yeah. Strongly agree. I have a third. If I would go back and create my list of three, probably the diminishing marginal returns probably would have made it to the top three. Mine is actually more related to the first part of what you said, which is just because everyone is doing it does not make it valuable. Now, no matter how many times I say this, everyone like nods when I say that. They're like, yeah, of course, that's true. And then I'm like, for example, 99.9% of competitions that you make your high school student do are functionally useless for the admissions process. They are useless. Meaning, if you look at applications in the aggregate, they do not correlate at all with success. And the reason why is simple. There are too many competitions. There are too many local, regional, and national champions. Like, how do you differentiate between number 3 in the physics Olympiad in Canada versus number 6 in the US versus number 2 in China? 99% of summer programs have no bearing whatsoever on the college admissions process. We employ 9 former admissions officers from Stanford. And if you ask any of them, do you care if a student goes to Stanford summer session? They'll laugh. These programs are not stepping stones to schools of your dreams. Often they're run by private companies that partner with the universities. They're lecture-based. You can learn a lot, and sometimes it's highly valuable for a student. But people think of this as, oh, if I go to Yale for summer camp, I'll get into Yale. That's not how it works. Even the ones that do matter in the admissions process, they don't matter that much.
And you talk about the Yale one, and the most popular Yale one actually says in its FAQs, this course will not help you with your application to Yale.
Ironically, that is actually one of the ones where it does have a small positive benefit. They're a small group, and there are some competitions that matter a ton. But the point is that getting number 1 in ISEF, that's going to take 95% of your time. And the probability that you rank highly enough for it to matter in college admissions, the probability is easily under 2 or 3%. That's a bad return on investment. You are doing college admissions correctly, and in my opinion, you're doing personal development correctly if you look around at what everyone else is doing and you're like, I'm not doing any of that. I have this weird interest in this niche field, and I have all these odd extracurricular engagements. That's what colleges look for. Ultimately, I think those are the people that our economy selects for as well, which is to say that I think it makes you much more employable. But yeah, I think that the following the crowd thing is all about, oh, if they're doing it, it must be important. If I don't do it, I'll look bad. And it's the exact opposite. So I think that's probably my number 3 to wrap that.
I'll just pick one of my kids, cycled across Europe, trained for it, had to learn how to maintain a bike, do all kinds of stuff. And yes, she was chaperoned. There was a group. You learn a lot of different stuff. She's got a lot of different stories. It's built her character and her resilience and perseverance. Then she's also done all of our Future Forge programs, because you're learning to work in a team, in a high dynamic situation, lots of failure, and you're learning a bunch of different skills.
Most of those summer camps, they are useful if you are learning something you cannot learn elsewhere, or you can't learn online, or whatever the case might be. Recently, we had this kid who was really interested in archaeology. And there's all these summer programs and summer sessions where you can learn about archaeology. We sent this kid on a dig. It was either Central or South America, with a team of professors that were going there to unbury Mayan pyramids or some iteration of this. That is so much more valuable, and like by an orders of magnitude more valuable, both from an admissions perspective, but also from an educational perspective.
A total victory would also be that the kid comes back and says, oh, I hate this. I don't want to do that. Because find out now when you're 17 or 16, not when you're 25, halfway through your PhD in the subject. Test what you think you're passionate about. Go test it. And the sooner you do it, which is why, yes, I like people getting a real job. I'd much rather someone spends most of their summer bussing at a restaurant and working their way up and getting some entry-level job somewhere, networking there, finding a way to get one, than any extra academic stuff, for sure.
Agreed. I love students who spend their summer creating something of their own, building a nonprofit, building a company, just doing something totally different than all of the other students, where there's not a predetermined curriculum and you're actually taking some risk. It's more valuable from every angle, and especially from a college admissions angle, but also just personally.